Okay, welcome back to this Cadillac to Woody transformation. This is episode 5. If you haven't seen the series yet, go back. This is where we started exactly 1 year ago in September 2024. Me and Rob went and looked at this car, Cadillac, former ambulance, former hearse, with a missing back. I have no idea why. But in the last 4 episodes, I've been able to transform it into my vision of making it into a Woody. And this is where we were at the end of episode 4. And here you could see the coach has basically been built. The fenders are from a donor car in the back. The rear bumper is from a donor car. The front grille is from the donor car. Now, when I left the last episode, I needed to do a lot. And most importantly, I needed to fill in those front empty panels there by the door handle and on the metal door. And I'm going to get to that. But once I finished putting the skin in all the frame, I realized the doors needed to have a little bit more body to them, not being so kind of like a hollow core door. And so here what I'm doing is I'm gluing some foam in, and I'm using Weathermaster from Type-On, which worked great for a lot of the glue ups on the car, wood to wood, foam to wood. And here you could see I built up a whole body, and you'll see some of that on the inside as well, not just the back doors. But now it's time to make this skin that's going to go inside those door panels. Now, where there was just the empty frame, I used the full girth of the 1/4-inch wood. And now I just need the veneer. So you'll see I spray glued it to that piece of wood just to be able to send it through the planer. And I was able to take off at least 3/4 of the thickness by throwing it through the planer. But by being supported on that extra piece, I was able to do it without tearing apart that last bit of veneer. I used acetone to remove it. Now, obviously, I used this tape to create the inside spaces, so I had a proper template. Once my piece was cut, the template tore apart, didn't matter. This is a dry fit. I did do a couple of dry fits and adjust some of the edges with a hand plane. But you could see that is that 1/4-inch plywood with the back taken off on the planer. Some more of the Type-Bond. And I'm using these little tiny pieces of wood stapled up with the pin nailer. And I'm just using that edge of that piece of pine as kind of like a roller in place of a roller. Just using that soft edge, well, that hard edge, but I softened it with a sandpaper. Again, some more of it. So I needed to fill in those 4 panels. And right now this glue is holding up pretty good. Now it's been about a month since I did this and no signs of anything peeling. To be honest, it hasn't been sitting in the sun endlessly. But to get around that door handle, you'll see I just cut out a little wedge. And once I glued it in, I glued the little wedge in behind the door handle. That was a little nerve-wracking for me. The door handle had a lot of slop in it. And by putting the veneer in front of it, it acted like a bushing. So the handles now do no longer have the slop in them. And now here you see just a slow assessment of where I'm going. I was able to glue that pink foam on the inside of all the doors, ultimately. And now this was before I did the episode of the steering wheel. This is a couple months ago. And now it's time to do the roof. Now, a lot of people wanted me to leave the roof so that the light could shine through it, and that's what I did here. I still have opportunities to do some other stuff that I might plan. So I'm using Total Boat high impact resin. And I'm being super careful because this can get really out of hand as far as the mesh goes. And I worked my way over the width of the mesh. It's a fine mesh. The width of the mesh only went halfway across the width of the roof. And so I was going slow, 1 rib at a time, because I didn't want to build up too much epoxy because I didn't want it to drip through the open slats. Unlike the boat where the slats were glued directly side by side, here I left a little gap of a 1/4 inch between them. And you could see that here. And so that gap now has the translucent epoxy on it. I did, in hindsight, wish that I would have cut more of the cab roof out so that the wood can come up past that body line, that arbitrary line that was created when somebody cut the cab off the back. but that's why we do these things, to do them. We do them to learn how to do them better the next time. I had to take the car out of the garage on the trailer to get it weighed. Now, the New York State DMV did not have any records of a 1947 Cadillac in its database, so I needed to take it to go get it weighed. So I took it over to a scale. By the way, I thought I would film the whole thing, but I completely forgot to film it because I was just so wrapped up in making sure that it was a safe trip on the trailer. So I only have me dropping it, picking it up and dropping it off. So the way I actually weighed it, I brought it over with the whole rig, weighed the whole entire rig, dropped the car off and went back with an empty rig. And the negatives, the deduction was obviously the weight of the car, 4,400 pounds. Now what you've been watching me make on the CNC machine there, on the CNC Fast Cut Plasma, is I cut the visor on the car. Now I made this visor, and you'll see it in the video. I made it in two pieces so that I could preserve a lot of that 1/8-inch sheet. I didn't want to cut the one big shape out of it. And I also thought that it would be interesting visually to have a seam in the middle with mushed rivets. And that's what you see me doing here. But I tack welded it all together with my Lincoln welder just to keep everything in one piece while I worked on it. So I wasn't flopping around with 3 individual pieces of metal. And here you see me just heating the rivets and smashing them on the anvil, which is on the table. And now, in retrospect, I don't love the way the visor came out, and I might change it. In fact, I will definitely change it, but not right away. After going to the car show, this video will end with me at the car show, going to the Rat Rod show and seeing some other vintage visors on cars up close, I have a better understanding of how it should be applied. I looked at some pictures, and I thought, oh, this would be a simple way to do it by putting these tabs and screwing it directly to the forehead of the car. And that's what you see me doing here, climbing up on the car and screwing this directly into the forehead. I did have to adjust them a couple times, but I didn't want to waste your time with me making those long decisions. So I did drill the holes a couple of times and move it around. Ultimately, I don't love where it looks right now. It does need to be kind of more of like pulled down over the eyes. So I will change that in time. But this is one of the beauty shots. You could see how the visor looks. So back to the interior. By now you could see that I have the pink foam inside the car, inside all the doors. And on the back door, I only put the wood just so that I could staple the license plates to it. And I do it on the lower half of the 2 gull wing doors. And again, just so that I could nail the license plates. I really love the look of the multicolored license plates. Everybody really thinks it looks great. By the end of this video, you'll see that I covered the whole front floor with all the license plates. My buddy Mike was at a junkyard, and he sent me a picture of these seats in an old Ford ambulance. He said, what do you think? I said, grab them. So he got them for me. Mike, thank you for that. And they smelled like mouse piss and cat urine. So I did my best to clean them up. But they definitely will get leather covers in the upcoming videos. Now, these are the pedestals for these seats. They sit a little bit high. I could probably chop about 1 inch out of them, but I'll do that in due time. And here I just use the needle scaler to clean off all the ganged up rust. And I use this rust inhibitor from Rust-Oleum. Not a sponsor, but it's the only thing you can buy these days at the store. They don't sell any other brands. And then just the Rust-Oleum red. And now with the car itself, it gets Total Boat Wood Sealer and then several coats of Gleam. Total Boat Glossy Gleam. Now this is the wood sealer going over the wood for the very first time, and you could really see the grain in that Sapele popping. It's Doug fir and Sapele paneling, and you could really see how that grain pops and that differential coloring in the grain. Now this is just a sealer coat. This goes on, it gets sanded, and I spent days upon days sanding and painting and sanding and painting. And when you lay down paint, you have to babysit it with the brush to make sure you don't have any runs. And you'll see me doing that in a few minutes. Keith and Lucas came over during the Field of Tools to work on the electronics for the car. Here I am bugging Keith. He loves it when I bother him with the camera. And we're getting this spotlight working, and Lucas is working on the taillights. These guys really troubleshot and got this all figured out. So Lucas, thank you for coming over and doing that. The car was a 6-volt car. Converting it to a 12-volt car is not as simple, especially when we're just kind of figuring it out on the fly. I had to buy a light bulb kit from one of the Cadillac suppliers. Again, with my fast cut. And then we decided the name should be Deadwood. And this is the logo that I created. If you follow me on Patreon, you see how I did that. Did that in Illustrator. I modified an existing font and made the shadow in front to feel like kind of like a horror movie. Deadwood. This used to be a hearse, and it's made out of wood. Deadwood. Thanks, Dave. That was Dave's idea. And now here you see me applying some gleam right over the foundation coat of the wood sealer. And this is the first of about 7 or 8 coats. And now the seats going in. By now you can see all the license plates added to the front floorboards. And I drilled the holes, and you see how I do my bolts. I bolt them up from the bottom so that I could plop the seats down on top of the bolts and then apply the bolts down over the top, instead of coming down through and spending all my time trying to tighten one from underneath the car and one down from inside the car. And actually this makes it a lot easier to remove the seats in a pinch. When Keith came back and needed to do some electric work, some of the wiring, I popped the seats out in just a few minutes. And now here you see me doing that lower half of the interior gull wing door. And I just used a pair of snips to make the random pieces fit here and there. And the upper part gets upholstered with red leather. And this is how I do it. I go in and I make a pattern with tape and paper. I could have used all the tape, but it would have kind of wasted a roll of tape there. And here you see me laying it down on... This is a 1/4-inch plywood, just some crappy plywood from Home Depot. And this is the basis for what's going to become the body panels for the interior. Now I cut them close with the jigsaw, and then I use the bandsaw to refine the cut. Now this is a big piece of leather that I had for upholstery from Weaver Leather, and I was just about able to fit all these pieces on there. You could buy this thin leather for upholstery, and you get a lot of square footage. It would have been a full hide, which is why I'm able to get all the pieces on it. Typically, my leather bags come from half hides, but that was a full hide. You can see how much you get. And just a little bit of number 90 spray glue, marking where the panel goes. And this is just polyfill batting. And the red leather goes on it. And I give it a little bit of a spray spritz to keep it in place. And then with some T50 staples, wrapping it up and stapling it in from the other side. And on this one, you'll see me do it. Now you see I did half, and then I flipped it over and do the other half. Whenever you spray like this, I like to do it in half and then half, so you don't end up accidentally sticking it down wrong. It's not like you couldn't correct it, but it ensures that you lay it down right the first time. And now these T50 staples, I'm just going to town with the T50 staples. And you'll notice my method is you start from one side and always go to the opposite side, so your tension is moving along. You don't want to staple one whole side and then the other whole side. You'll end up with a cockeyed piece of fabric on there. So whatever you do on one side, go to the complete opposite side. And now I'm just using little black steel cut furniture tacks, and I'm banging them in, and they're hitting the steel table and bending over from the other side. So I just banging them in, and they're cinching. I didn't want to have to do the button tufted, where you put the button and have to cover the button with the scrap of leather. I like this because the little black dots, they're kind of diamond shaped. And by banging them in on top of the steel table, they bend over the other side so they don't pop out. It worked almost perfectly. There was a couple times where I had to adjust it from the other side, maybe CA glue the screw rather than the other side of the tack. And here you see it in place with all the license plates. It really is coming together. Now that's just a fake interior dome light. That's just a DeWalt spotlight. But it doesn't look nice to see how the car could light up from the inside. Now this was these shots are out of order. That's before I screwed them in, even though I just showed you screwing them in. So it just gives you kind of a feel of what the interior is going to look like, even though I just screwed them in. And so again, paint, sand it, paint, sand it. This is all getting sanded with 220. and then I paint it again, and then I sand it, and then I paint it again. I give it about 10 hours between coats, at least. It was very difficult to chase drips, and spent a lot of time chasing drips, and you'll see here me applying one of the last coats. I stopped using a throwaway brush, and I used one of the expensive brushes, and it was really important to just keep going over it and standing with that side and just keep watching it. Now here, this is the application of the logo. Like I said, I did about 8 coats on both sides. It could still use more. It could still be sanded and used more, and I might go back in time if the car is going to be used in some sort of presentation, or if it's extremely important to make it look as good as possible. I could just break out the brushes, bring it inside, sand it, and paint it again. Now you'll notice I like the logos from the 40s and the 50s. In some cases, the fasteners are right through the face of them, like on old campers. So that's why I was okay with just putting the screws directly through the face and where the shadow and the logo would be. I just put some stainless screws. Now in time I'll get these chromed. They're not chromed. They're just covered with clear. I know that won't last. Now here we are taking it out for a ride. Keith is following me. I'm taking it out. We got it to that point. Seems like all the wire. We had a little bit of a problem with the blinker wiring, which I'll explain in the end. But we're good. The whole goal for me was to get to the Rat Rod event. And that's a few days away from where we're looking at right now. And you could see I'm going back and forth. It's making some weird noise. It seemed like the drive shaft needed to be oiled or greased because the drive shaft was rubbing in the mid-bearing. But it wasn't making a crazy sound. That was me and Keith just trying to suss out what the noise was. And now I just go for a drive around the property. And the car works well. It really runs great. After all this time sitting seized, in the earlier videos I unfreeze a stuck valve. The engine was seized when I got it, but seized from sitting, not seized from no oil. And it runs and moves. It runs great. In this case, I was able to take it through all 3 gears by the time I took it out on the road. So the Rat Rod event is 4 miles up the road from my house at the Blackthorn, which is the same location where we hold the Maker Camp, if you're interested. So this was a test run. Took it for a ride and then brought it back inside. We still had more work to do, and I probably wanted to add more coats and touch-ups to some of the coating on the paint. By the way, you can see that I did get my license plates. This car went from being completely abandoned, dead, completely down for the count. Obviously, we got it mechanically fixed up. I got it kind of stylistically set up, and now we are registered and insured, street legal. I'll be able to sell this with proper paperwork if I ever do sell it. But these are some beauty shots in the backyard. And by the way, in the earlier, there you see I put the pump jacks on the doors. Earlier in the video, I was using little bits of piece of wood to keep the veneer just glued in place on the 2 front panels on each side of the 2 metal doors. I was able to pull those pieces off once the glue dried. I didn't want to create any confusion. So all those little tiny pieces were just to hold it while the glue dried. You'll see I use these struts to keep the doors open, and they're so strong that when they go back down, they go up past the pivot point and they lock them in. So now this is the big day. I'm taking the car over to the Rat Rod, and I'm going to put it on the road for the very first time, the actual street, where it's important to be registered and insured. And here we are. This is the very first drive, and I tell you, if I tell you that I wasn't nervous, I'd be lying. We got it up to about 45 miles per hour. One of the rear wheels is bent. The rim is bent, and I haven't been able to find a rim that's the same size. The donor car has smaller rims on it, so I wasn't able to use them. And you could see the shifting. And I get to the Rat Rod event, and I park. I got there a day early, so the place was a little sparse when I parked and when I took these shots. And here you could see some of the other cars at the show. This was not a competition. It was not judged. It's just a place to hang out with like-minded people and see some pretty badass cars. Lots of T-buckets and open-wheel racers like these guys. And then this is the burnout pit. There's just too much to show. I'll link a video, if I could find it again, to what was at the Rat Rod show, and you could see it. This is the burnout pit where people just blow tires up. It's insane. And so it was a great weekend. I got to meet some some old friends, make some new friends, and now I'm driving home. I'm just amazed that this car runs and drives as well as it does, considering what it looked like when I found it. Now here I am at home. This is by far not the last episode of this series. I will certainly make leather seats for the front of the car, and there's some more mechanical stuff I can do some videos on, and absolutely going to work on the windows. I need windows. I might solve that color break in the roof. I have some ideas. And the body came out looking pretty good. This, by the way, is the back door pulls. I plasma cut the skull with the Cadillac logo in it. And you could see I got the struts on the back doors as well. They hold the doors shut and they hold the doors open. Again, I love that slow opening on the gull wing doors. And you can see how those struts work. And you can see how the light still comes through the roof. And it is now waterproof. Obviously not waterproof without the windows. And I wanted to show you the very first blinker we bought was this piece of junk on Amazon. It's like $25 and it caused a lot of problems. And then at the show, Keith found this on one of the tables. I bought that, but we didn't have a wiring pattern for it, so we didn't know what was what. And then Keith found a good one online. It took a few days, so it came a couple days after the rat rod. And so with this new blinker switch on the column, we have proper brake lights and we have proper blinkers, and all the lights work. And in an upcoming video I could show all those details. I just forgot to shoot them. And the flashes work and everything. And you can see the floor there. I hope you enjoyed this series as much as I enjoyed making it. It's not done. There'll be episodes 6 and 7. But the majority of the coach work is obviously done. I do have some interesting ideas for the windows, and we're going to work on that as well. And I'm actively looking for my new project for the winter. I did buy that tow truck. If you follow me on Patreon, you see the tow truck. I bought a 1983 Chevy tow truck, and that needs a tremendous amount of work, and we're going to probably pull that in for the winter, and that's going to be my winter project. But look at how the tiger eye look on that veneer. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please share it with a friend.